Welcome, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are watching and or listening to another interview for the Phil Ferguson Show. With me today, I have Ryan T. Cragun. That doesn't stand for Tiberius, does it?
That would be awesome. I would be so proud if it was Tiberius Kirk. I would genuinely be proud of that.
And just in summary, we're going to talk about religion today. So sometimes people have been expressing lately, I haven't had enough religion discussions on the show. So we're gonna go at it with religion, talk about religion, and I don't know, pros and cons. Ryan, I don't know,
Kind of, kind of.
kind of pluses and
Yeah,
minuses.
sure.
So Ryan, you do some work in Tampa. Is that right? What?
I've been at the University of Tampa since 2007, so I've been here for a while. Yeah, I like Tampa. Tampa's a good city.
And I don't know if it matters, but what's your title there?
I am a professor of sociology. I like to say professor of empirical sociology just
Yeah,
because I am so data oriented, but I am a professor of sociology.
fair enough. I know when I was in undergraduate getting my degree in psychology, I did a lot of correlation analysis, test design, studied a lot of that where sometimes and and this kind of came into play as I was reading the report that we're going to talk about a little bit. It can change the numbers dramatically just by changing the word order of a question, or
Oh
or
yeah.
even or even the order the questions are asked. And of course, whenever you say and you cited clearly, where you got the data from, I didn't know because I didn't go look.
Yeah.
Was it, man on the street interviews? Was it
No.
over the phone? Was it paper? All
Yeah.
those things run through my mind because they can all
Hmm.
skew the data. But I mean, you gotta find something that you can work with, and
Sure.
you did. It's never going to be perfect, and you addressed that quite well in the thing here. And let's see, this is in the journal. Is that right?
Yep.
Journal Secularism and Non-Religion.
That's correct. Yep.
And the title, if people want to look it up on their own, is Religiosity is Declining, but Giving is Increasing, colon, can the non-religious really be less generous? Which I thought was odd because it should be, can the non-religious really be more generous? Because the above sentence was talking about increasing. So
Oh yeah.
that was a twist that I wasn't expecting. Um, did read the whole thing. It took me a while because it is a scholarly write-up
It
and it
is.
has certain requirements and citation,
Hmm.
lots of citations. Well done. I
Yeah,
mean,
you know.
if you're judged by the number of citations, you get an A.
Thank you. There are a lot of citations. Yeah.
And I really like the introspective nature of this kind of work generally, although we can talk about your podcast, your blog post that wasn't so introspective,
No,
or,
much
or
less so.
people that weren't so introspective, where there's a lot of discussion about, well, there is this and there is that, and there's this problem, and these other people came up with different results, and here's why, and here's what they did. So, viewers, listeners, if you're into that kind of stuff, you're gonna freaking love this article. And I'm talking way too much, Ryan. So tell
Oh,
me about
okay.
this. What's going on?
Yeah, so there's been this assertion, and we'll definitely come back to this, in the broadly social science of religion, but we could also talk about it in terms of like charitable giving literature, right? So it crosses multiple literatures that religious people are more charitable than secular people, and we can obviously define these terms, and we're going to probably have to at some point. So that claim has been around for a long time, actually quite a long time. And the crazy part about it is like the first time I read it, I was like, that bullshit, right? Like that's just not true. But there's a big caveat here, right? And that caveat is, okay, what are we looking at as far as what they're giving to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the
That
first
makes a
part.
huge difference. It really does make a huge difference. So if we say religious people are more likely to give to religions, then I'm like, yeah, like shocker. Like everybody should expect that, right?
That's in the no
Religious
shit
people,
Sherlock
yeah, yeah,
category.
it's one of those, right?
Yeah.
100%. And Michael McBride, he's an economist at UC Irvine. He framed it in a way that we use in the paper they're basically paying their club dues. They're going to church and they're paying to go to church. And of course, what happens is then people conflate that and say, oh, but they're giving to their church and their church is a charity. Phil, you're a financial advisor, right? And I don't know if you do like filing taxes, things like that. Do religions get a charitable classification by the IRS? Do you know this?
By default, yes. Yes, they don't even
Okay,
have to be a 501c3.
right.
And further, I don't know if you know, but I have a recurring segment on my show where people will actually get the budgets from churches if they're compelled to go into them, like to vote or
Hmm.
for a wedding or a funeral or someone drags them there. If they leave the budget out on the table, people will grab it and send it to me. And
Fun.
so I go over it line by line, talking about how much goes to each category. And the general number I have found is that for most churches, the percent of revenue that they receive from the congregants that actually goes directly to like genuine charity. I'm not talking about, Young Men's Outreach
No.
Committee
Mm-mm.
or even, what is when they send someone to another
Like
country?
missionary work,
Yeah,
something, right?
you know
Yeah.
what about you know about that, right?
I know a little bit about
Yeah,
missionary
yeah.
work.
Often missionary work, they can provide some benefit to people, but a lot of it's not so beneficial.
Sure. Yep.
Uh, but even giving them a little credit for that, most churches are between 0 and 5%.
Hmm.
I did have someone contact me and say, "Bullshit, my church gives 10%," and I said, "Send me your budget." He did, and they do.
Yeah.
He could document. So that's the high bar. That
The
10.
highest I've seen is 30%.
Oh
I've seen
wow,
30%, that which is
wow.
really unusual. So
That
here's the fun thing. The
yeah,
reason why religions actually get the tax deduction is not because they're considered charities by the IRS.
yes,
They're considered religions by the
and
IRS.
and
So
separated
they
from
have
the
the
church and
same
state.
kind of, yeah, they get the same tax benefits, but they get added benefits because they're religions. So it's
Yeah,
not that they're charities. And so when we're thinking about giving to religions, right, people conflate that as giving to a charity when in fact I would say it's like paying your gym dues, right?
right.
If you go to the gym, you got to pay your dues, right? You have a membership fee. That's what you're doing when you go to church. So we absolutely should expect religious people, if they're going to church, to be paying their dues.
Of course.
Totally fair,
Yeah,
right? And if you're an atheist who never goes to church or a non-religious person who never goes to church, we would not expect you to be paying church dues, right?
right.
So there should be a difference in giving to religions between religious and non-religious people.
I think
100% there should be a
that's
difference.
a really good. What would you say? Assumption, a test. What
Yeah.
was it in the report? Your
Oh, it's just like a baseline test, right? So we want to verify that this difference does exist.
trying to remember
And we
the
absolutely
specific because you laid
do.
out four different possible hypotheses. Of course,
Oh,
as I'm
well,
saying
oh,
it.
there you go.
Yeah,
Hypothesis.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of your
So
hypotheses was that non-religious people give less to churches.
yes, which is like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like no
yeah,
one should be surprised if
yeah.
that's actually the case.
But it's nice to
Here's
check.
where, yeah, yeah, and we do. We definitely check, right? Here's where this gets complicated. So we have religions. They're not charities, but people think of them as charities, and so they consider that giving to charities. It's not, but let's say that it is. Fine. Then we have all of these secular charities, actual charities.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the part that has always bugged me. There are people, we'll come back to them, like Robert Putnam, who's famous for Bowling Alone, right? He's a really big, well-known scholar,
I'll take
and
your word
David
for it.
Campbell. Yeah, and we're going to talk about it. And David Campbell, who is Putnam's at Harvard, Campbell is at Notre Dame, right? Campbell's much less well known, but that's fine. Who have made claims like religious people give more to both religions and secular charities than do secular people. And the
And of
very first
course,
time I read
of
that,
course,
I
they
was
have
like,
the data to back that up, right? He asks knowingly.
wow, yes. We'll come back to that, I think. We'll definitely come back to
Yeah,
that because it's a bit of a shocker what they actually did there.
yeah.
So that's the part that I wanted to test, right? That's what I was like, okay, let's actually verify this. You've made this claim. They made that claim 15 years ago, something like that. People had made it before. And I was like, no, 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 we have to pull that apart. So let's look at giving based on where the targets are. And let's see who's actually more charitable. That's the basic premise of the paper. And there is another piece, right? So the title kind of gives away why we're doing this. So I didn't focus just on that. The percentage non-religious in the US has been going up since 1990. Where now it was like 7% in 1990. It's now up to 30%. During that same time, when adjusting for inflation, charitable giving has been going up as well.
Per person.
Yes, right. So we know that it's been going up. Both of them been going up. And in fact, I showed this. I don't think I showed it in the paper. Maybe we did. The correlation between the increase in non-religious and the increase in charitable giving is 0.97. Now,
Holy
we're not
shit.
making a causal claim. That's just a super high correlation,
Right.
isn't it?
That's the R squared you're talking about
No,
here.
no, no. That's just the correlation. R square would have to square that, so it'd drop, right?
Okay.
But the
Well,
correlation, which is not causal,
from 9.7 to what? Nine.
0.8 something, or
Yeah.
yeah,
9.0.
it's going to be really, really high,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
So the
crazy.
correlation is huge.
Yes.
Again, I'm not making a causal claim. I'm not saying that charitable giving is based on how many people are non-religious. That's not the claim. I'm just saying, look, it's a positive correlation. So how could we possibly be getting more charitable giving while religiosity
Well,
is declining if secular people are not as
I
generous?
I think while you may not want to say
Mhm.
non-religious people are giving more, just with that correlation, I think it'd be safe to say they're not giving less.
Yes, that is ultimately our conclusion.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion that we come away with, and we'll explain why I don't make the bold claim that they're giving more.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that when we actually talk about the results.
We have like 10 things to get back to already.
I
So
know. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
they're just gonna have to read it. I mean,
Yeah, they should. They should
all
read
right, that's how you get the big bucks.
it. I get nothing for this,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it. Okay, so where do you want to go next? Do we want to talk about the data? Do we want to talk about the results? What do you think?
You know what? Let's jump to the results.
Okay.
Because and of course, for the people that are very interested in this, go read it.
Yeah.
It's a good read. It's a little long compared to your tweet, your average tweet or something, whatever they're called now. Uh, but it's very meaningful to understand. I really wish more Americans than because I don't know what it's going to be like 5% of Americans could read this and understand the bulk of it. There were a few
Probably.
things I didn't know, like the gamma and the lambda. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
okay, that's beyond my memory at least. But it's really nice to know, what the p values are, the
Mhm.
probabilities, the r squareds versus correlation, um, and the nuance between having enough people to make a valid sample size because you
Yep.
break it into different groups and
Mhm.
it gets a little sketchy down below 30,
Yep.
in the subgroups. And you also broke down the giving not just in religious and secular, but the secular you broke down in the like 8 or 10, 12,
It's 8 categories.
eight categories of,
Yeah.
possible things, not necessarily relevant to our discussion. But at the end of the day, I
Mhm.
guess you found out to your horror that secular people just don't give any money, right? Is that what happened?
It's a good setup. I like
Yeah.
that. They don't give very much to religions.
Ah,
So shocker, hypothesis one is supported, right?
right.
They're not particularly generous. They're not paying club dues,
Yeah.
right? So that is, and for the listeners, right, and for those who are watching, when we're talking about giving, so there are two pieces in the paper. There's just whether or not you give, and then there's how much you give.
Right.
The data set that we're using, the panel study for income dynamics, has both of those. So we actually
We
look at
call it
both.
PIST, right?
Yeah, I didn't
PSID.
call it that, but that's
Yeah.
pretty good. PSID. So it does look at both of those, and we break them out because I think that's important. Because not everybody has mega bucks and they can give lots of money. So kind of I think it's useful to just like, okay, how many give, and then how much do they give?
I was
Um,
surprised
yeah.
with the limited sample size. I mean, several thousand. I don't know,
Oh, it's
5,000,
8,000 people,
8,000.
which is a big sample. Yeah, but yeah.
How incredibly large some people reported as their total net assets and or income.
Oh yeah,
Someone had minus $3 or
millions.
$5 million of income for the year. It's like, really?
Well, I mean, again, you're a
It's
financial advisor.
yeah, yeah,
Could somebody lose that much in the stock market?
yeah. It's probably more of are these from taxes or they're self-reported? I don't know, but you
Yeah.
know, of course, you have all of those biases because this is probably not you're not going through their tax records. It's probably
No.
self-reported
It's
information.
self-reported. It's self-reported.
So who knows? I know when people ask me, for a home loan, how much do you make? enough. And so that creates weird problems with
Yes.
mathematical analysis. And so you had to do some reasonable adjustments, I thought,
Yes.
to kind of
Very
zero.
complicated adjustments.
Yeah.
We have to log everything, right? So we're using logarithms to get rid of skew. This just causes problems when you're dealing with regression analysis. We don't have to go into the details. If
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
have questions, they can definitely look at it. But with income and with wealth, right? So those are two different measures. We had to skew
Hmm.
those, and then we had to deal with the left censored data. So we ended up using a special kind of regression that handles that called Tobit regression. So rather complicated stuff, right? I learned some things doing this analysis. So this was actually really, really useful for me. But the analysis gets really complicated. But then we have two different types, right? So we've got did you give? How much did you give?
Right.
Not surprisingly, right? As we mentioned, and the way that PSID actually asked this, they asked religious affiliation. They allowed people to say atheist or agnostic. They grouped them together. And then if they said not religious, they just grouped them together. So I have two separate groups and I kept them separate. And then we're comparing them to like six other groups. You've got Catholics, you've got Jewish individuals, you've got Mormons, Buddhists, um, let's see, like other Protestants, right? There's
Jewish.
other Christians, Jewish. Yeah. So we've got like a bunch of other groups. Baptists are in there. So we're comparing them to all those groups. When it comes to giving, whether you give or not to a religion, um, not surprisingly, atheists and the non-religious are the very bottom. They're the least likely to give to religions. They're not
And
paying their
honestly, I
dues.
was kind of surprised how high the numbers
I
were,
know there are actually some who do give, right?
which, now you get to, you have problems with self-reporting, and is someone
Sure.
saying they give to a church, or do they give to a church because they're married to somebody that's in the
Probably.
church?
That's probably the
Um,
big one.
or do they not understand the question? Because God, that's always a problem.
Yeah.
You've got the error bars on there, but
Hmm.
yes, definitely a lot smaller, very
Yes.
small,
Yeah,
relative.
very, very small. Though, interestingly, the group that wins out, right? As far as the proportion giving is Mormons. Mormons, it's over 60%, right? For all the other groups, it's less than 30%
Well, I
actually
mean,
give to their
Mormons
religion.
are theoretically, and you might know more about this than me. For those who don't know, you're a foreman, right?
Yes, I am. I
Former
lied.
Mormon.
Hmm.
I've heard stories that not only is 10% required, but they want your tax documents to match up and prove that you're giving 10%.
So it's not required to bring your tax documents in, but they do have at the end of every calendar year, they will have what's called a tithing settlement, right? Where you will go into your bishop, your local kind of pastor, basically, and the bishop will ask you point blank, Phil, are
Come
you a
on.
full tithe payer?
Yeah.
That's kind of an awkward question, right? When you're looking straight across at somebody and they're like, have you paid a full tithe? 10%. It's supposed to be 10%. Now, some Mormons will interpret that variously as like, is that after taxes or before taxes, right? So you
Yes.
can get into some nuance here. But at the end of the day, they're going to ask you straight up. And I was actually talking to another ex-Mormon the other day, and he's like, I was kind of surprised it was as low as 60%. And I was like, I'm not, right? I mean, there are plenty of Mormons who aren't fully engaged and they
Or,
don't
or
they
they're
don't do all
lapsed
that.
and they're still in the
Yeah,
rolls. They call
absolutely.
themselves Mormons, but they don't give.
Yeah.
They don't
So
show
so
up.
there's definitely that group. But among religious groups in the US, like they're at the peak. They are maximum, right? I think if most other religious groups could come anywhere close to Mormons, they'd be ecstatic. They'd be making so
Right.
much more money. They
And this
don't.
this 60% is 60% of the self-reported members gave something.
Something.
Yes.
Something. It's not telling how much. It's
Not yet.
something.
It's another
Right.
category.
Yeah, that's another category. So we do kind of did they give, right? And then we, of course, ask how much they gave. And how much they gave is complicated for many, many reasons. But
Hmm.
again, the analyses work. The people should read the paper. So that's the first one. I was just like giving to religion. Now we can move to the second one, which is like those seven categories of secular charities.
Right.
And I think it would be useful once we start talking about the results to talk about effect sizes and R square, because that's super important for this story, for what's going on here. So, are we ready? Should we jump
We are ready.
into the results?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when we start looking at giving to secular organizations, for the most part, right? It's kind of weird, and I'm certainly not trying to reinforce stereotypes. At the top of most of these, in terms of probability of giving and how much they give, is Jewish individuals,
Yeah.
and then number two on most of these is atheists.
And I do want to point out it's very, very important that people understand that this is adjusted
Yes.
And this is adjusted for gender, for age, for
Yep.
income. And so
For wealth,
it's not that
education. Yep.
atheists and agnostics make more.
Mm.
They do. But it's adjusted for that. And
Yeah.
so given a certain income level, atheists
Mhm.
give more than almost every other group other than the small sample size for Jewish
For
people.
Jewish individuals. Yep.
And so, yay us, right?
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah. So controlling for all of those things, atheists are generally number two.
I
Yeah.
was going to ask, I know it's controlled for age,
Yes.
but was there a factor to adjust wealth and age together? Or does
I mean,
that
you could do
kind of
that. We didn't do
neutralized
that.
out? Yeah,
Yeah.
because one would assume, I think it was in the
Hmm.
paper, that the
Yeah.
average atheist is younger than the
Hmm.
average Catholic, or at least
Actually,
the average
I'm
Jewish
trying to think.
person. I think was
They
pretty
they
similar.
are on average, but
Right.
that's controlled for, right? So that's going to be
Yeah.
controlled for in the model with so all of those things that we're controlling for are controlling for simultaneously in the regression
Okay.
model. So
Okay.
we're controlling for all of that simultaneously. I was just thinking you were talking about like doing an interaction, which we could, but I'm not a huge fan of interactions. They're
Yeah.
complicated. So we control for all of those, and what we find is atheists are right there near the top. Um, Pretty much regardless of the organizations. And when we're talking about organizations, we're talking about like health organizations, educational organizations,
Mhm.
cultural organizations, international peace organizations, organizations for the needy. There are lots of different types of secular charities. Atheists are right near the top on all of these. And then the nuns, so just otherwise not religious, they're towards the bottom. That's fair,
Mhm.
but on a lot of these are like right in the middle, somewhere towards the bottom. Okay. So they're not at the top. That is totally fair. They're not at the top. But here is where this becomes super key. So I could have come out and said, look, statistically, atheists give more than most other religious groups, Jews generally being the exception. I could have made that argument and then tried to claim that atheists are actually more generous. But, and this is really, really important, the amount of variation explained in giving, both in terms of probability of giving and how much, is almost zero.
Yeah. I when I got to that point, I was like, well, shit.
And I'm happy to give like an explanation for for your listeners in case they don't really understand what I just said. I give this example in my classes. It's a useful way to think about it.
yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Yeah. So when you're doing statistical analyses, finding that something is statistically significant is kind of like winning the lottery.
Hmm.
Okay. You've won, right? How much you've won, I think matters more than whether or not you won. Okay. How much you won is what we call effect sizes. So imagine that you're playing Mega Millions, right? Most people are going to lose that, right? So fine. But playing the lottery includes scratch offs, right? And what's the minimum amount that you can win on a scratch off? It's like $20,
No
right?
idea. I don't
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
I don't play it either, right? I mean, I would never, I've never played the lottery, so like
Yeah,
I don't really
never.
know, but it's very little, right? And so the example I use with my students is like, okay, if you're playing a scratch off and you win $20,
You're a
is
winner.
this life altering? Is this like, are you going to drop out of school at this point? It's like, dude, I won the lottery, man. I won. I got $20. I'm done. I'm out, right? No, you probably might be even a little bit embarrassed that you're like, I played the lottery and I won $20, right? Now, that's very different. You won the lottery, that's statistical significance. Okay. But if you won the lottery and you won $1 billion with Mega Millions, that is life altering money, right? That is going to change your life. There's no question about that. So, how much you've won is the effect size. Okay. In this case, I emphasize as my effect size R square. So, it's the proportion of the variation explained in my dependent variable, which is giving. Okay.
Hmm.
And when I say that can range from 0%, we're explaining nothing, all the way up to 100%. At a minimum, to be considered meaningful at all, you have to be able to explain 2% of the variation in giving. That's a cutoff that was given to us by Cohen in the 1980s, right? For almost every single one of these outcomes, it's well below 2%.
Yeah, that's
Religious affiliation explains nothing. It is a meaningless variable.
now was that total giving or that secular giving?
Secular,
Yeah.
secular. So on
Yeah.
religious giving, and it's actually weird. So when we're looking at probability of giving, That is the only one where it's like genuinely meaningful and it
Yeah.
crosses, from like negligible to small. It's about 7%. So just in the probability of giving, having a religious affiliation accounts for like 7% of the odds of giving to a church. Okay. That's the only one. Every other one, it's like 0.008, right? It's like less than 1% of the variation is explained. It's totally meaningless.
And so I think within the probabilities and the error bars,
Yeah.
it's not safe to
Right.
say that atheists and agnostics give more.
Bingo. That's
But
what it
it,
tells us.
but it is safe to say the data shows that atheists and agnostics do not give less.
Exactly.
So when
Very
someone,
good, Phil.
thank you, I tried really hard. So when someone says something like atheists and agnostics give less, they're just flat out wrong.
Yep. Call bullshit. Call
Which
bullshit.
which goes to your blog post
Oh boy.
from Putman and Campbell, where
Hmm.
I think, if I summarize correctly, if not,
No,
you
you're
just let me
good.
know, that they categorized really religious people versus less religious, no religious affiliation, and atheists and agnostics together,
Yep.
because as you were talking about, there is a group of people that have no religious affiliation or very, very low religious affiliation
Hmm.
that probably just aren't tuned in to
Right.
their
Yeah.
religion. They aren't necessarily tuned into society, and maybe, I don't know why, but they're just not giving a whole lot of money. And
Sure.
so when you combine them with atheists and agnostics, you end up with a result that looks like the really extremely religious people give more than this big basket of muddle,
Yes.
which, okay, maybe that's true, but you went through their data
Yes.
in the blog post and found out even that's probably not true. But if you
Yeah.
give it a fair look from an outside perspective, like a rational person would do,
Hmm.
um, you were not gentle with your name
No.
calling. Um,
No. I'm not, right?
yeah,
So they published a book called American Grace. It's a New York Times bestseller when it came out because it's Robert Putnam, right? He's the author of Bowling Alone. He's a big name. And in there, they make very explicit claims that religious people give more to secular charities. But you got it really well. How they cut up religious versus secular, I've never seen anybody do that before. I've
right.
never seen anybody do it since. And I think the reason they did that is they were loading the data.
Yeah,
They were
yeah, yeah.
cooking the books,
They're cherry
right? They
picking
cooked
the
the books.
data. Yeah,
100% they cooked the books.
they
If
looked
you
at it and they
gave
said,
me, yeah,
what way can we slice and dice this to say what we actually wanted to say?
yes,
And that's
right. I mean,
disingenuous,
yes,
if I'm being
at
polite.
best.
Yes, yes,
Disingenuous at best, dishonest and deceptive and lying at worst. And
yeah,
I think they knew what they had,
yeah.
right? So what I did several years after their book came out, they released their data, they made it publicly available, which good on them, right? Like I do respect that. So yes, I'm going to punch at them right now, but I do respect that they made their data available. Then what I did, and I had actually done this years ago, I just put it together in the blog post because this paper finally came out. I went into their own data and I cut it a different way. So I just said, oh, you've got a variable about whether or not somebody's an atheist or not. Cool. Let's look at the atheists and compare them to all the other believers. And it turns out when you look at atheists and their secular giving, they're at the top.
Yeah,
They always were,
yeah.
right? Even in their own data, it said the opposite of what they claimed. And if you cut it by whether they're religious or not, same thing. Non-religious people are more likely to give to secular charities than religious people are.
Well, I mean, if I don't have 10% off the top, or probably more realistically, 2 or 3% off the
Yeah.
top, I might have a little bit more disposable income because I'm not paying that high membership fee
Hmm.
to the religious organization. Uh, and we're getting a little long, which is great because we could do
Sure.
this all day. But I want
Okay.
to make sure that I mention that at any bookstore, you can find, how many books do you have? Half a dozen?
10,
A dozen?
10, something,
10.
something like
Okay. And again, it's
that.
Ryan T. Cragun, Cragun. I think last time you were on the show, we talked about Goodbye Religion.
Yep. Hmm. Yeah.
And I think we may have talked a third time farther back in the
Yeah. Could
past.
be.
The new uh, book that you're a part of is called Unearthing Life Stances, which is not directly related to this category.
No.
And you wanted me to make sure that people knew that they could go to the website De
De
Guter,
Gruyter. De
Greuter,
Gruyter.
De
De
Gruyter.
Gruyter.
It's DE, well, in your Google search, DEGRUYTER space, or
Yep.
not space with the search, BRILL. And
Yep.
then once you get into that website, again, search for Cragun,
Hmm.
CRAGUN. And apparently you said it's free.
It's free.
It's
Yeah,
free.
we paid in advance so everybody can download it for free. So you can read the whole book for free.
And what the fuck is that about?
Uh, it's I'll try and keep it brief because I know we're short on time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, for a long time, particularly religious scholars have been categorizing the non-religious as like, okay, we have religious people and we have non-religious people. And then you look inside the religious group and you're like, we have Catholics, we have Protestants, we have Jews, we have all these people, and we have lots of different ways for people to be religious. And then there are those nuns over there. And we're going to ignore everything about them. There's
Ah,
nothing meaningful to say. They're just nuns, right?
yeah.
And we're
And
like,
and and
hold on. Oh,
spelling
yeah, go ahead.
here, N O N
N-O-N-E-S. Yeah.
N-O-N-E-S, not
Not
nuns with
N-U-N.
the funny hat,
Right.
right?
Not wearing habits.
N-O-N-E-S.
So yeah, so basically they just said they're not religious. We don't care about anything else about them. And what there's been a turn, I think, in kind of people who study the non-religious to say, actually, hold on, there's a lot of variation among the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, and it's not like they don't believe things.
Yeah.
They have beliefs, they have values, they have morals, they have all of these things. So increasingly, we're starting to think about this as what we call a life stance. Some people refer to it as a worldview or a life stance, which just captures like the beliefs and values that you have, the relationships you have, the behaviors you engage in. And we happen to use community gardens as a way to get at this because, and I'll just be very quick and then we'll end on this, right?
Yeah.
What you can do is you can go to a gardener, right? And you can say, hey, tell me about like bugs in your garden. And it's crazy. I didn't ask them, tell me about your life stance. I just said, tell me about bugs in your garden. And suddenly you'll get like their whole moral and ethical system because they're like, well, it's really tricky. Like, I don't want the bugs eating my food, but they have every right to eat this. It's not like I'm somehow special. Humans and bugs are on an equal playing field, and we're all part of this big ecosystem where we have to work together and we're heavily dependent on them. And suddenly, like, they've given me their entire life stance. And all I said is, tell me about bugs in the garden. It's remarkable. It just so we unveil all of this stuff about life stances just by talking to gardeners about what it's like to garden. It's a pretty cool book.
Excellent. So everyone go check out all of that. Um, where can they find you or contact you? Is there an email that you want to give away?
Sure. I mean, you can use either one. So I'm easy to Google. There is another Ryan Cragun who played football for UCLA. I'm not that guy. So pretty easy to find. I've got a couple of websites, but you can also just hit ryantcragun@gmail.com. Super easy to email me. It's not a problem.
And in case you see this soon enough, dear viewer and or listener, you are going to be giving a talk. Did we decide? Is it March
Yeah,
1st?
March 1st.
Just days from the release of this program. And that is going to be at the Central Florida Free Thought Community monthly presentation in University Park uh,
Yep.
in Winter. Or,
University Club of Winter Park, I think is what it's
yes,
called. Yeah.
University. Yes, thank you. Winter
Mhm.
Park. That's just east of Orlando, Florida, for
Yeah.
those who aren't in the area. So you will be there. I have every expectation to be there. I think it's 2 p.m.
2
Eastern
p.m.
time.
Yep.
So if you're in the area and you see this in time, make plans to be over there. If not, of course, check out Central Florida Free Thought Community for something else because they do lots of events. Ryan, is there anything else you want to go over before we wrap up?
No, check out the blog post, right? It's great. It's a little more punchy than the article.
Oh, and I'll give the blog post, of course, it's at ryancragun.com.
Yeah.
And the title is The Truth Finally Wins. Secular Americans Are Generous. Yay. Ryan, thank you for being so generous with your time. I appreciate it very much, and I'm sure my listeners will adore this segment. So, again, thank you for being on The Phil Ferguson Show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Phil.